I'd like to welcome everyone to the Village of Lake Bluff Sustainability and Community Enhancement Ad Hoc Committee regular meeting for Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. Can I get roll call, please?
Absolutely. Member Buccio?
Present.
Member Cole?
Present.
Member Hance?
Present.
Member Twitchell?
Present.
Member Barrett and Member Richer are absent. Chair Renner?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. Next up is a consideration of the February 21st, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Were there any comments, changes, anything in the minutes?
No.
If not, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Voice vote.
Is it all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next up, we have in our list any spot for any items not on agenda tonight. If anyone wants to speak anything not listed, and don't know if there is anyone. If not, we'll move on to general business.
All right, there is no one online participating,
Okay.
and so we can move on. So first up on the agenda, we have a few different items. The first one is going to be a presentation from Lake Bluff Open Lands Association regarding the Route 176 Buckthorn clearance. And if Ben Miller can come up and he can present on that.
Cool, we got the presentation going. Hi all, Ben Miller, President, Lake Bluff Open Lands Association, and I'd like to introduce you Michelle Moradchek, Board Member and Natural Areas Coordinator for Lake Bluff Open Lands. I asked her to attend tonight, mostly have a friendly face.
We're friendly.
A friendly face that knows answers to questions that I don't. Always have that one. I'm here to update as much information as I have on the progress of the Green Region Grant as it applies to 176. So the core of this whole project is rooted in the thematic landscape plan that was done in 2019. Drew, correct me if I'm wrong. Since that point, there certainly has been interest in figuring out a way to finance the proposals that were outlined in that playbook, and one of the ways that we found to do that was through the ComEd Green Region Grant. If you can go to the next slide, please. This, I'm sure you're all familiar with, one of the exhibits from that playbook outlining specifically the 176 corridor. If you can go to the next slide. And the key item, remove invasive species, maintain high-quality tree plantings, and add herbaceous plantings to promote views. That is this grant application in a nutshell. It was getting rid of buckthorn, it was replacing it, and it was maintaining anything of quality that is there. So at that point in 2021, Lake Bluff Open Lands drafted and submitted a revisable application to the village to seek this external funding to fund this portion of the project to get the ball rolling, because it was a long-standing project and really deserved to move forward. Next page. And then in 2021, it was awarded to the Village of Lake Bluff, the Rockland Road Wetland Rehabilitation Enhancement and Pollinator Habitat Project. Thank you to Open Lands and ComEd for their support on this one. I'll throw that out there, not that they're listening. Next slide. So phase one, which was completed beginning in February of 2022, was the removal of buckthorn by Pizzo and Associates. The specifics of the contract, I'll defer to Drew and Jake Turlap. Don't have them off the top of my head. But the first step is getting those invasive species out there so we have a base in which we can then execute any revegetation efforts we want, whether it be through seed, live plant material installation, institution of mowing, prescribed fire, so on and so forth. Anything that we would expect out of a natural areas land management regime. And then subsequent to the removal would be application of herbicides, because you simply can't cut buckthorn down, as many of you know. You need to follow it up with some sort of chemical control, otherwise it just comes back. We did do some additional monitoring and land management to beyond what was done in the contract for other invasive species that did pop up. beyond what was initially found for that grant, or for that contract. Phase 2, summer. The grant terms were, there's an investment by the village to remove the buckthorn, and then in return, the village received monies to purchase live plant and seed for the revegetation portion. So to follow through on that, in June 22 and September of 22, 2,700 native flowers, grass plugs, and 73 native trees and shrubs were planted along that corridor. In addition to deer protection, which is something that we did not anticipate, but definitely will need to follow up on. They are vicious out there, holy cow. And in addition, there was also some talk about Rockland Wetlands, which is the adjacent Lobola Managed Preserve. There were some issues with screening that the Park District had concerns about in our clearing over there to kind of bolster this project. So some additional screening was added over there adjacent to the pool. You were part of that, Mariana. You were there.
Yes.
So this is in the playbook, the species list that we've been guided by for this whole project and for a number of other Lobola initiatives. If you go to the next page. These are the ones that we were able to hit first time around. We were kind of victims of circumstance. At the time we were purchasing, we didn't quite have full access since it was already June. Most landscape material orders are in by April. So we didn't have quite the breadth we were looking for, but we decided to kind of spice things up with our own list. So anything that's listed outside of there are additional plants that we invested in for the site. They would be appropriate to the site and aesthetically pleasing, native, all of them. I think that's it here. By the way, any
The
questions?
typed in ones, you mean, were the additionals?
Yeah, anything that's squared off is straight from the list and was included in our species mix. Anything that's typed on there are just things I want to brag about.
So have you guys found that the playbook useful? I mean, it sounds like it has been helpful.
It has been helpful. I mean, it is certainly, it's a good guiding light to show us where we need to go and what the village wants to see. There are some items in there that we do avoid in certain places for a variety of reasons, but it's a very good basis for us to start with. And we've been using it for the Skokie Preserve. I know that's not relevant tonight, but we're using it for the Skokie Reserve as well.
Well, if things change and something becomes problematic or whatever, I mean, share that information. Right.
One of the species listed on here, you're not a huge fan, gray dogwood, all over the Skokie Preserve, but it is not something that we would encourage planting because it really, it's not native, it's not invasive, but it's aggressive,
Yeah.
very aggressive.
The INR lists it on their how to kill plants list, so they actively take it out.
All right, so
What do you
that's
know?
great
So we should
feedback.
never plant that, we have plenty.
Yeah, so if you look over there.
What is the name of it again?
Gray dogwood, Cornus racemosa.
It's here.
Yeah, please do follow up with emails or letters to the SEC as you find these things or what works and what doesn't work better. This was never meant to be a permanent set playbook. It was meant to evolve as we learn and as the climate changes a little bit, so.
Certainly, it's fantastic for screening, but in this particular circumstance, that's not what we're going for. And quite frankly, the next, I would say, 12 to 24 months, we'll know what we have rejuvenating out there now that the buckthorn's gone. We'll see what comes back, and what comes back will dictate what we invest in the future, because then we know what can thrive.
Now, I have a question for you. Is this area that you're talking about an official open lands site, Lake Bluff Open Lands?
No. Currently, as I understand, our memorandum of understanding with the village only covers the portion of 176 between Eva Terrace and Green Bay Road.
Okay, I know what
Something
that
we
road is.
would be looking for from the village, and we'll be talking with Drew at a future, is what do we do with this parcel? Do we expand what we call Rockland Wetlands to include this entire stretch, such that it is under our land management purview? Or should we be sticking to our borders, as it were, over at Eva Terrace and Green Bay Road?
Got it.
I think it makes sense to treat it all as one long parcel. Makes all the sense in the world to me, especially since we are also managing on the south side of 176 along the bike path.
So
But
did
that
you
is-
plant in that area that's west of Eva Terrace?
Yes. Everything mentioned tonight is planted west of Eva Terrace, with the exception of the little bit of supplemental screening against the pool.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so February
at that.
2022.
Eva Terrace, the one that goes into the
Yes.
Park District.
Margaret
that
Abel's
sort of
home, and then you get the
backside
parking
where
lot. The rec
whatever.
center.
Yeah,
Rec
but
center.
that-
Yeah.
The driving range.
skateboard
Thing.
ramp
The
thing.
driving range is right there, right?
Yes.
Right, so
Yep.
the
Yes.
other side had that skateboard thing.
Yeah.
it,
No longer there. That's
Right.
Nope.
best used as Lobola parking right now.
Oh, well, at least it's you.
There are hoops back there. Basketball hoops go up in the summer.
They do put the basketball
Yeah.
hoops back up, yes. So here's a photo from February 2022. Once the buckthorn, actually this was a progress photo as Pizzo was moving through and getting buckthorn out of that site. Next slide. There we go. So this was our first planting event. Thank you to Nick Wehrmeyer and his family, very dedicated volunteers planting oak trees out there on a hot July day. Holy heck. So this is when the majority of our trees and some of our shrubs went in. And then next slide, please. September 2022 is really when the vast majority of that 2,700 or so plants went into the site. And so it was a wonderful work day, plenty of people out, a lot of enthusiasm, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Anything else?
So when would you plan to burn it? Like, how long do you let things get established before you would do a burn? Or would you just wait to see if
Can you go to that next slide? It'll
Stuff
help
is-
answer the question.
stuff has come in?
We did seed it this fall, and part of the reason we seeded it so quickly, even though we're still going to be dealing with buckthorn resprouts, and I believe Pizzo is going to be coming in this year to do another round of application, specifically in this area. So we don't want to put live plant material in this area because otherwise there's a chance that we get hit. But we did seed it with at least a cover crop to try and build up that base so we can burn in the future. 2 years, I would say we should start some sort of long-term management regime. Not a quick process. So everything was seeded this past fall, all the way between Margaret Abel, her home on Eva Terrace. There you go, perfect map.
Yeah.
All the way back to kind of where there is right now, we'll call it a bog, where we have standing water that previously was not visible, and now we can see it truly is a wetland parcel of that property. Yeah, next slide. And then I'm going to switch gears and then talking about the south side. I figured given Jawa's input here and our input, there would be an interest on that south portion as well. So there, in the playbook, it says maintain the existing remnant prairie. Next slide. So this was actually 2 weeks ago. We were able to burn on the 176 corridor bike trail. Very successful. And then in April of this year for Earth Day, our plan is to purchase live plants and some new trees and shrubs and install it here to replace some of the dead ash that were removed, the buckthorn that started to creep in, thistle, and God knows what else has been popping up there over the years. So the progress moves on. Summary of these are boots on the ground numbers. I cannot stress enough that this is just volunteers working on Rockland Wetlands and 176. This number is probably double or triple when you take into account time, writing grant applications, administrative time, things of that sort. All the things that I can't account for Michelle doing behind my back. So rough estimate, somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 hours over the course of 2022 went into this project, on top of all of the other park district sites we manage and the very significant investment we've made in the Skokie Reserve the past 12, 18 months. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
When we get around to, we presented to the Park District last night, SEC tonight, and in the near future, I hope we can present before the Lake Bluff Board. Those numbers in terms of service hours are going to be astonishing. So I look forward to drafting that one. Please,
Are you done?
go.
No. Are you done? You finished.
Next slide. I don't remember what's next. So this is what we're looking at for 2023 and beyond. Continue to monitor the site. Certainly we have another, I believe, year out of Pizzo to keep the buckthorn under control. We're going to monitor for things like lesser celandine, which popped up on the site. They were treated last year, and I believe we have some early signs of success. Anything else that we encountered that we...
Deer.
Deer.
They're terrible.
Deer. Not going to chemical control for that. But installation of deer protection fence to save all the plant material that we've already invested on that site and anything additional we want to put in there. Again, talking about our memorandum of understanding, whether or not this portion falls within what we call Rockland wetlands, and to codify that. That is certainly the next step of this process. And then future prescribed burn 2025, question mark? That's what we're looking at. Also, we do have significant stand of cottonwood / poplar, silver poplar. I'm not 100% sure what we got there, but I do think we need to consider additional thinning to increase sunlight penetration for future plantings, especially if we're looking for things like shade trees out there. If we
Are
want
you
oaks,
talking about Rockland wetlands, or are you talking about that western part that you said was really wet?
western part beyond where it's really wet, it's kind of in between the standing water and the Lake Bluff sign. And I think that's it.
Are you getting a lot of feedback? Are people getting back to you and saying, what are you doing? It looks awful, or it looks fabulous, or I never knew we had those birch trees?
No.
Are you getting any feedback?
Oh, I hear really positive things.
I've heard from people here and there, you know, a lot of times they think we cleared the buckthorn. I make that very clear. We did not clear the buckthorn. The village cleared the buckthorn.
Got it.
But I mean, the only feedback I've heard has been positive
Good.
for this particular site. I think everyone's really happy with this, which is always good.
That's a
That
big
saying
success
being
clearing
able to
buckthorn is
see.
not always bad or scary.
People love being able to see through. You know,
I think so too.
I've heard a lot of positive feedback.
Have you received any feedback, Drew? I mean, certainly the calls would come to you. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
That's good.
That's really good.
That's
That bodes well for future buckthorn removals.
I think that's a good segue. Drew just asked if maybe we could speak briefly on these.
Eric, can you get into Lake County Maps, GIS mapping, and bring up McLaren Lane, please? So, yeah, just to put a finer point on it, thank you, friends of Lobola, for partnering with us on this. But, yeah, the 176 corridor plan and the implementation through this grant project has been hugely successful, lots of positive feedback. You know, for years there was a lot of hand wringing of should we do it, should we do it? And now it's like, why did it take so long to do it? You know, so
For sure.
it's an evolution. Which carried on to the next project that I was gonna have Michelle talk about a little bit. The village and Lobola have been working together on another buckthorn thicket, a long-standing buffer that the village has held on to for a number of years, but finally decided, let's move on. And that's along McLaren that separated the preserve area to the houses that rear yards backed up to the west there. And Eric's gonna bring it up.
So,
Where's the pool?
There it is, yep.
When was it, last fall?
No, February,
February of this year.
first 2 weeks of February.
Well, we sent the
Yeah.
note, though. We sent the
Oh,
letter.
right, we sent the note in the fall.
In the fall, we sent a letter to all the residents along that corridor there and said, hey, the village for years has maintained or really even required this invasive buffer, but it was a buffer. And we said, hey, we think it's time to remove it, and you let us know if you think something differently, but this is our plan. And the feedback that I received at the time was, hey, don't stop on your property, keep going on mine. You know, so it was kind of a different flavor, right? The idea, let's keep going, which was very positive. And then, there was I won't steal, yeah.
So I agree with that. There's really 8 people on that line that are directly adjacent to.
Well, and the one at the far north had already cleared his own out, right?
Well, that's over here, I think you're thinking of.
No.
No?
The house is under construction right now.
Okay, yes, this guy right
Yeah,
here,
right there.
he definitely cleared his lot.
I can't imagine the amount.
And he
of
actually
guys-
accidentally went further into the preserve.
Oh, good for
So we
him.
said, well done. This guy here, this family's super supportive.
They actually said, why did you leave this little,
Right,
we
they
left
would-
a screen for them, not
Right
wanting
here.
to completely open them up and not knowing exactly where their property line was.
Yeah.
They came back to us and say, hey, get rid of it all.
Yeah.
Good.
Excellent.
So we did. We cleared to their property line, to this guy, and the third one down is also very on board, a little bit more concerned about what the exposure was gonna be, but so far I think he's been okay. I talked with him once since we started.
They'll get such great views.
I was just gonna say.
Some believe that to be true. This guy here, not so much. And I quote, "Nothing personal, but I hate this."
Oh.
And he
Change,
also
it's
brought
hard.
up the original agreement. He wasn't here in '95 when that agreement was in place, but during the sale, he was shown the agreement where it said the buffer was staying. So I said, noted, we're planting more, don't worry. We
And
just,
This was all spurred on by not a grant.
oh yeah, we could backtrack. I don't know how much you folks know. Our site's a, Illinois,
IDNR Land and Water Reserve, on its way to being a preserve, which
Great. Oh, that's great
we're
news.
working.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. We need to dot a few i's and cross some t's. But one of the things that became accessible was funding to get it to that state, including some ancillary supplies, and getting rid of the wall.
Brilliant.
So we got a state grant to clear the wall, and then the same company did a prescribed burn on the whole site, also in February. And then there's other tree removal work happening, that no one's had any comments about. There were some trees taken out here. This whole thing should be a prairie. There should not be trees on it.
I'm sorry, Michelle, but
Yes.
could you, I'm not oriented with the, where we are, like, if you could just show me,
Yep,
like.
right, this thing here is Jawa.
Oh, that's the.
Yeah, that's a way, so we can
Our
see
water
the
treatment. This is
176
Mariani.
maybe.
Okay, so that's.
So we access through a little further,
Keep going, keep going,
There's
keep
one
going.
seventy-six.
Keep going.
Oh, right there, 176.
There you go.
Okay, so there's
So we
176.
access
There's the
through
pond.
here, and we come through here, and all this is Jawa right here. But we take care of it, and they let
That's
us
the Skokie Preserve right there.
maintain a trail.
So this is West Lake Bluff, west of Green Bay Road.
So this is
right
the
there.
water district back there, this big complex here?
Yep,
Okay. And
This
this all
is,
goes way
um,
back there, got it.
this is West Sheridan Road,
Yeah.
right here, yep.
Yep,
Okay, thank
yep,
you.
yep.
Okay, so we had a lot of work done in like 4 weeks, like overwhelming. Woo! In the meantime, now we have interns and volunteers to keep working on a lot of the invasive shrubbery, including mostly gray dogwood that is in here and needs to go. And it's tedious, it's time consuming, and we've got a year and a half to keep plugging away with our grant money. But yeah, so far mostly, I mean, I believe if there's 8 people really, if there's 8 people on that, and I'm including one woman, I'm not sure she actually got the letter because her property doesn't touch the property, doesn't touch the Skokie, but she can see it. She's thrilled. So far, we've only had 2.5 people.
And even both of them in their communication said, clear more.
Correct, they both did. And what they don't, we sent them letters, we delivered letters, and I spoke with as many people as I could directly, that we are now in process of trying to find more grant funding to replant the wall, we called it the wall, to replant along the border with more shrubbery again, that's more appropriate. I don't think those people are quite hearing that message yet. A couple of them that they don't understand, we're not done, you know, that,
And if there's a point at which you shouldn't judge this project, it's now.
It's not now.
And over the winter.
it looks terrible.
And it looks like it's under construction because it is.
It is, and when the wall came out, one thing that was a little bit of a constraint that we didn't anticipate, so tall grass restoration was one contracted. Typically, they were using a forestry mower, which is this, big,
Mounted on a skid steer.
and they were basically chewing up the buckthorn as much as they could, but a lot of it was too big for the forestry mower, and they were sawing it, and then ideally, they would have burned it in place, brush piles. And that didn't go as well as planned.
What do you mean by that?
Too much pushback, people concerned. So we
About
didn't
the
burn
fire?
very- They didn't get to burn very much. So
About
what they-
burning?
Proximity of fire to adjacent homes.
So
Yeah,
they,
I get
it
that.
was tough. It was a rough go. Tallgrass did a really good job managing all that, but in the end, they couldn't burn like they wanted to, so what their plan B was just to keep mowing it. So when you go, if you ever get a chance to go out there, there's like a carpet of buckthorn debris. That is unfortunate, because it's gonna take a lot longer for it to decompose. And a lot longer for us to actually be able to replant anything like seed. So that's that's the way it is. Unless the village wants to come out there and clean it, you know, like rake it up for us in their free time. I mean, we don't have the equipment to actually rake up the debris there. If we did, we have no way to get it out either. It'll go away. It'll take longer, which is was not foreseen, but, you know, it's what this is. We figure it out as we
We take
go.
the
So,
curveballs as we take them, and that's where we're at right now.
yeah.
Awesome.
That's great.
Pretty cool.
And I'm
I think that's about it.
working on trees. Yes.
Eric, I just saw the deadline for those, open lands grants again. Like, what are the odds you could get another one for
ComEd?
the ComEd one?
Because Lobola received the ComEd Green Region Grant for another property last year, we will be ineligible for at least 3 years, I believe.
Oh, that's
And
too
because the
bad.
village received one, same would apply. The Park District could apply for one, but again, that would not take place in the Skokie, that would take place in another Park District property. But even that's not a guarantee.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
No, but we're so lucky to
Yeah,
have Lobola
congratulations.
in our community.
big
You guys are
success.
awesome.
It has been a very dramatic year. We've been very lucky. Mostly to Michelle's work. What are you, 5 for 5 on grant applications at this point? Yeah,
Well
she doesn't
done.
like to
Oh,
toot her own
yes,
horn,
that
but
is
that is a
awesome.
lot of direct funding going to open spaces in our community.
Thank you so much for everything you've done.
No problem. Happy to be here. And again, I imagine we'll probably be in front of the village for our grand, I suppose you could say, land management report for '22 sooner rather than later.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, related, same topic?
Yeah, same topic. This one is a report that was submitted by Central Lake County Joint Action Water Agency, CLC Jawa. Their executive director, Bill Susi, unfortunately couldn't be here tonight to present it. So what I have done, this is regarding the prairie restoration down at Jawa. I have put together a PowerPoint slides with his pictures from the report, and I'm going to read through the report as the presentation for you, so bear with me.
They're great pictures. Bye, Ben.
You love this.
There we go. Okay, so this is the Central Lake County Joint Action, the CLC Jawa Prairie Restoration. So this first picture comes from the 2014 Front Pond Bank Restoration. In 2014, CLC Jawa treated a swath of turf grass, ringing the pond and then subsequently seeding the area with a native prairie mix. Erosion control matting was placed along the shoreline to stabilize the seeds and to maintain moisture. Routine pond treatments were commenced to control cattails, aquatic reeds, and filamentous algal growth.
Eric, just, again, I'm sorry, I'm being newer to the area. I'm not as familiar with this. We're talking about this is abutting what we just talked about, right?
Yes, just south of Rockland.
Just south of Rockland?
Yeah, you're heading west on 176.
Yes.
And you see the pond on
Yeah,
your left.
on the left.
That's it.
That's, so this is all in front and the
So
side?
just east of Mariani.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just for quick frame of reference, it's,
That pond right
This
there
right
with the
here.
island, Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
so this pond is the one that's in the pictures that they submitted.
right. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. So today there is a established mix of native forbs and grasses sprouting forth with different colored flowers throughout the growing season, eliminating turf grass around water and establishing a plant buffer, helping to reduce runoff sediments, nutrients, and herbicides in the water. So next is the Area 1 restoration. And in 2021, CLC Jawa sought to address the large turf grass area on the property bounded by the North Shore bike path, their walking path, driveway, and fence line. This area is referred to as Area 1, is essentially the front lawn for Jawa. In the fall, they treated the site and then waited for the herbicide to decay. In early winter, they dethatched the area and then broadcast a low-profile native grass and forb mix suited for sunlight, hydrology, and soil conditions. The seeds were covered with biodegradable matting to protect them from predation and water runoff. Here is a sequence of photos showing progress in Area 1. So this is from November 10th, 2021, showing a portion of Area 1 after herbicide application. Note that the herbicide colors turn green so that it is clear what has been treated. Flags and signs were posted to alert walkers. Also note that the restoration areas will be framed with turf grass to help maintain a tidy landscape appearance. The turf grass frame will be about 1 riding lawnmower's width. This next picture is from November 15th, 2021. This is the dethatched area and most of the duff removed. In the distance, Native Restoration's employees are hand broadcasting a low-profile dry prairie with flower seed mix. It is a grass, sedge, rush, and forb blend designed for the soil type here. And this is also a photo from that same November 15th, 2021, as is this one. This next one is from December 17th, 2021. And it is seeds tucked in under the erosion matting, waiting for spring's warmth.
Cute.
This next one is June 22nd, 2022. This is the view looking north towards Rockland Road. Here, plants sprout through the erosion matting. At this point, the area looks weedy. And they explain that later on. The next one is August 4th, 2022. These are forbs and grasses that have grown in very well, especially the brown-eyed Susans, to which we have a variety of photos of the different plants that have been planted. This is August 17th, 2022. 2 weeks later, brown-eyed Susans dominate the landscape, but upon closer inspection, vervain, partridge pea, and fleabane have also bloomed. Meanwhile, many seeds in this first year are only setting roots. And they provided some nice close-up photos of the flowers as well. Staying with Area 1, in August 18th, 2022, as planned, the eager plants are all mowed down to allow sunlight to reach those smaller species that will spend their time in the summer building their root systems. At this point, they need assistance competing with some of the other plant species. Next year, they will reveal themselves with colorful blooms. And this is the same, but in September of 2022. And here are some established photos around the pond at COC Jawa, and these are ones that have been there since 2014, so when they did that initial work in 2014. The next up is a month later with fall colors.
Looks great.
So this is just this previous November. Area 1 finishes the year looking like a weedy lawn, but this is because of the required mowings during the new prairie's first year. Next year will be different, and so will the years that follow.
Nice to know.
This is 5 days ago, March 16th, 2023. As the year begins, Area 1 will enter its second growing season. This year, no mowing will occur with the exception of periodic stewardship visits. The plants will be allowed to reclaim the soil on their terms. Annual herbicide and fertilizer treatments required of the original turf grass have been eliminated. Instead, a fall-controlled burn is planned to encourage plant diversity and to eliminate weedy species.
I thought that was actually the most important sentence, that the inputs are eliminated, so no more chemicals
I
going
agree.
in.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
And this then is going into Area 2. So this past fall, the restoration of prairie in Area 2 was initiated, combined with Area 1. The entirety of CLC Jawa's front lawn will now be naturalized. The graphic below depicts the area. And note that Area 1 is not pictured here. It is to the east or the right of the pond.
Yes, right.
And then this is portions of Area 2, turf treated in preparation for dethatching, seeding, and erosion matting. And this is Area 2, just a few days ago. Area 2 matting installed in the fall is visible here. Seeds will sprout in the spring, and the process used for Area 1 will be repeated with a few planned mowings during the year to control competition between plant species. CLC Jawa also welcomes all Lake Bluff residents to watch how the prairie reclaims its old turf. And I will say, Bill Susi, the executive director, told me if any of you would like to tour it or to have any other questions, feel free to reach out to him. And he would be glad to talk to you about it more or even give you a tour of the facility and the plantings.
Wow, that's a great invitation. This is a beautiful case, really. Well documented before, during, and after. It's great.
It's also, I mean, I'd love to find a way that we could really give them the accolades they deserve for doing this and to hold it up as an example to other, industrial landowners who have a lot of lawn. I think there's no value to lawn.
You know, I think that's a great point there, Sophia. Even if we go back to our leaf blower objectives, which was to really reduce the amount of manicuring of lawns, you know, we could leverage these commercial examples and private examples for personal reference, you know, to incent our village.
A Green Thumb Award?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
We give
to,
local
you know,
businesses a Green Thumb Award, you know, or two
Well, there's
green
just
thumbs up or
so,
something, you know?
there's so
like-
much that's valuable about this, be it, pollinators,
Yeah.
Insect extinctions, helping combat that, climate action, sequestering carbon. I mean, there's so many wins to this kind of, behavior change.
I wonder if we could get them to sponsor, I mean, if they've offered tours, if we could promote that and have, some village days that, we could get groups through there to educate our village residents.
I mean, I'm trying to think what other businesses we could do something like that on, or what other properties here in Lake Bluff. Is there another property in Lake Bluff?
Well, I don't know
that
if it's
does-
all unincorporated, but all that stuff behind Heinen's and, like where Pasqua's, like all that stuff over there, there's tons of it.
Well, I don't know, they've got lots of photos, I don't know if they have any videos, but I'm thinking, we talked about our educational component, we talked about the Eco Club and the Video Club at the high school producing videos for us. This would be a great example to help produce a short video describing all this and have it out there as an example of, the village and Jawa and working together and the playbook and, it's just a great story. Even on paper, it's a great story. And then over the next 2 years, as things fill in, it's just going to be amazing. And I know at one point we talked about whether there would be paths and signage eventually used for some of the stuff, but that's another area I think would be great in terms of if you're doing walking tours, it could be guided tours and maybe a way to put some signage about, this is what it was, this is what you're looking
There
at.
are all those walking paths along there, so it could just be plopping signage.
But maybe there's, someone who knows how marketing works, to put some signage together.
I mean, Lake Bluff Open Lands already has them at the Skokie Preserve, of just
Right.
like a little signpost with the QR code that says, click, snap, this is what's going on here. So I agree, whether that private business wants to fund and include that on their private property, I'm all
But-
for it.
Yeah, no, I think it would be good for learning and for a demonstration case, yeah, sure. Great stuff. Hopefully we get to our bike path landscape plan. That's still out there, looking to find someone to do it, right? And get the prices in line, Drew? Yes. Okay,
This is off Sheridan.
yeah. Yeah, we looked at that. It was a really great plan. We came up with some great ideas and,
There's a lot of work being done there right now. This is on Sheridan Road, north of the train station. There's a lot of clearing and,
wait,
on Sheridan Road
Yeah.
going north.
Who's doing that?
not north, well, yeah. No, I'm thinking between the train station and the middle school, right? Where
No,
our-
if you were gonna go towards, past Crabtree, You know, there's a
Okay.
lot
No, I
of
didn't know about that.
Yeah.
stuff on both sides of the bike path. Is that the area you're talking about?
He's
I
talking about
think
further south.
Chair Renner is talking about the area south of the train station where the village has a plan. There's like a bicycle station.
Oh, yes, yes,
And
yes.
benches and some landscaping there that the village has bid out a couple of times, and just the pricing has been astronomical. So we're doing it piecemeal, and so.
Oh, I remember, yeah, where all the lawn is right now.
Yep. So that will happen, it should happen if the numbers come in right. At least the hardscape improvements are happening for certain.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's happening.
Great.
And then we'll landscape around it,
Okay.
so.
So what
But
is
to-
all the stuff going on?
I think that's a private, a resident that has secured a permit with IDOT to do maintenance through that corridor.
Got it, got
We
it.
should dip that resident in gold. Or not?
Well, no, I mean, yeah, I think it's.
Based on
yeah.
the project, I bet you they're already dipped in gold.
Well, God bless them, because there's so much junk up
Yeah.
there.
But it's a blessing to be able to have private citizens do that level of work on
Yeah,
their
it's
own,
awesome.
take the
You
initiative.
know, IDOT actually has a plan for what should be planted in these, you know,
Mm-hmm.
adopted, you know, you can adopt a highway thing. And they actually have a plan, they have plant lists. I'm not sure if they ever monitor that, but,
They don't ever seem to clear it out.
IDOT was part of that corridor plan,
yes.
Lake County and
When we had
IDOT,
that meeting
yeah,
here.
they were part of that development,
2019.
yeah.
All right, good stuff. All right, so speaking of good stuff, you want to go to the next agenda item?
Yeah, we are now moving on to outdoor lighting regulations. So in August of 2022, during the staff report, village staff kind of started discussing some of the work we had been doing regarding developing a lighting ordinance in Lake Bluff. And we showed the SEC some lighting zone maps for such an ordinance. In preparation of drafting such an ordinance, village staff is recommending the SEC to develop a purpose statement. And this purpose statement can be used as kind of the backbone of developing the rest of the ordinance. You can go back to it and check, does this match with the purpose statement? And exactly what are you trying to accomplish with a lighting ordinance and the goals set forth? And so we recommend you conducting this discussion. As well with, we provided several different examples. Some are more lower level, fairly short purpose statements that were used. I believe Beverly Shores, Indiana was one, and then there were some that we used that were much more thorough, such as Flagstaff, Arizona, which was the first international dark skies community, and that one we felt was a good one to put in there as an example, as well as Hawthorne Woods had a more thorough purpose statement as well for the SEC to look over and kind of review and start discussing what they would like to see in a purpose statement and what are the core purpose and goals of this ordinance, potential ordinance.
Yeah, I will state, if some of you don't know, we've already been working on the technical parts of a potential ordinance for the village of Lake Bluff, and that's available should you want to review it. But before we get into kind of the deep dive of foot candles and all the technical stuff, the purpose of tonight is to take a step back for a minute and, get out of the technical details and talk about what the overarching purpose of this is and what our mission statement is. And then, once that is done, to then kind of get back to the draft of the ordinance that we've started, look at some of the things. There's also, at some point, even though I have a lighting background, I am not a lighting expert, light pollution expert, dark sky expert. And so we've also talked about the village being able to retain the services of someone who's developed these nationally and who's, it's their profession to do this. Take a look at all of our input, our draft of ordinance, our ideas, and kind of help take us to the finish line with the ordinance. So I don't know, Drew, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think that's right, and just, you don't have to, make any steps tonight other than start thinking about it, right? The idea, this is the beginning. Think about applicability, commercial, residential. Think about, when I was in Bannockburn, we wrote exterior regulations that were trying to be simplistic, but what happened was there was tear downs there on large lots, and people were putting up lighting to like illuminate their driveway, and people were like, hey, it's looking like O'Hare. This is not what we want, right? We're an area that we want to put nature first before the built environment. And they wanted to come up with some regulations to say, we don't want to see light sources. We want so any fixture needed to be turned inward. They didn't want to limit, because some of these properties were so large, 8, 12 acres. So the idea that we can't put a number, a max quantity, but we could say they can't be any closer than X. So the idea that you can't have, create that kind of runway look. They talked about sources should never be pointed upward, or, the idea, where should it be pointed downward, and it should be inward, not outward, so that you shouldn't see a source when you circle the exterior of a property. So some really high level things. They said these are simple things that we can do that can help manage somebody's experience as they go through the community. So those are some of the high level goals that they worked around and ended up implementing, and it was something that worked. And in terms of when it applied, is that when you came through there in Bannockburn, you went through a design review process for any exterior modifications to your residence of single-family homes. So there was many opportunities to get a view at this, but they said when you went through that process, that's when you had to come into compliance with the new code. So there was kind of like, when should it apply? Are people be grandfathered? And so all things to think about, but.
Yeah, and that was one of the things as we started to look at the different cities and towns who have done this. They've taken slightly different approaches. Sometimes they've applied it only to commercial properties.
Yeah.
Sometimes they've only applied it to the municipal properties, the government-owned properties. There are some that apply it to residential. So these are some of the things that we want to think about. My feeling in initiating this as a chair was that this should be comprehensive, not unlike the discussions we had about leaf blowers, commercial, residential, is the park district exempt. This should be comprehensive. I think that you can't have areas that are bright and not bright, because I think that, when we look at it is, simplistically the pointing up, but it's also about even if it's pointing down, how far it goes to the adjacent properties. So there's light pollution up, there's light pollution out. There is quality and quantity of color of lighting. You'll see in at least one of these, they went so far as to talk about the color, low pressure sodium, high pressure sodium, LED. If it was LED, it was in a certain range. When I looked at the lighting for the village, particularly along the bike path, one of the things we looked at was the color temperature range, because there's some current studies that talk about a certain color wavelength for nighttime wildlife not being affected by the lights as much.
Nice.
So there's something to look at there. And then there is the amount of foot candles, the amount of illumination that you do have, even if it's pointed down. And lastly, what I didn't see a lot of, but is important, is the control of when the lighting is on and off and what it does. And Illinois actually has some very good codes now for, even for exterior parking lots, that, it's actually code driven, where you have it go down a certain level, and after a certain late level, it goes down even more. So there's steps in terms of where the lighting is done. And then last, as mentioned, we have typically, when it comes to particularly residential, but also commercial, we've kind of put in that threshold, like Drew was mentioning, of, okay, you're going to do so much to your house, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 worth of renovations. Changing a few lights is peanuts, and it's a way to incorporate those types of things in. And then things like holiday lighting should obviously be covered. We don't want to limit people's ability to celebrate around the holidays, but there's a lot of things, particularly the kind of inexpensive landscape lighting. People just go to Home Depot and then put all over their yard to talk about
Like where
things.
people are lighting up their house and lighting up their trees, it's all
Right,
going up.
uplight, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I've talked to one or two residents also who have, even though we're in a safe town, have mentioned they like having lighting for security, but there's ways to do that with occupancy, with sensors, with timers, with motion. There's different types of lights you can use rather than some big floodlight. You can distribute it. I have in my backyard solar-powered lights, only point down into my yard, and they only come on when there's motion. So if someone were to come into my backyard at night, they would light up, but they're smaller. Like, when we have foxes sometimes, I can look out there and see the light go blink, and then another one go blink, and another, as he's walking along the fence. So, and then it goes off after another 10 minutes, so. So,
I do like the idea of a purpose statement, sort
Yeah.
of why are we doing it and what's important. And, I sort of like the length of Hawthorne Woods, and that it's in sort of bullet points. And it's probably in 3, but just sort of minimizing adverse impacts to wildlife was referenced earlier.
Yeah, I like that too. I also just had a thought on, what's our objective? I mean, besides, an ordinance to regulate, what's the objective? What's our goal of this to, I mean, one could be, do we want to be declared an international dark sky place?
I don't think we
With a
could,
certification to get that.
I don't think that's possible, and based on where we are in our proximity to Chicago and Milwaukee and large.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, if that's not possible. I think it's more about the regulations, the things you have in place, the steps you're taking, McCambie, besides just the amount of lumens in the sky. I think it's your objective to get there. And that's what I'm saying is, do we want to have like a goal of what we're putting out there for people that the village is trying to either protect or get back to, that can then justify the steps we're asking to be taken, so that we don't just say, well, we want you to reduce lumens to this, we say, why? Because it's too bright. Well, why? Well, because, so to me, and I was inspired, last night we went to see Jane Goodall in Highland Park.
She's inspiring.
And she talks about, trying to appeal to people's hearts versus confront them and tell them they're wrong. And so I thought if we had some kind of a goal in our mission statement that we could get people to rally behind, that says, we want to be known in this village as this. That's what we're working towards.
yeah, I think, things we need to think about too, just like we did with the leaf blower or chicken ordinance, is what we put out and what our ultimate goals are. None of these are meant to be, we do it, we're walked away from it, it's done.
Right.
I think there are incremental steps that we have to take. I think, for instance, converting the residential over may take time as people renovate their homes. It may take time as people buy into the process of what good practices are. So there's definitely a path, but I think, for me, when I talk to residents, especially now that people are spending more time at home with work from home and things of that nature, is that, not unlike the leaf blower noise, people are just bothered by bright lights. Maybe they go outside and want to watch the stars with their kids, and the neighborhood is just lit up from various types of sources. But I think we as a village have incrementally moved that way. When I was on the village board, we had the development of Target, and they went to LEED Silver. And it may not look like it, but the parking lot fixtures that they're using there are dark sky compliant, and in that they look bright because they're up, but if you were able to look at them on a level, they are not shining up, they're shining down. I did the exterior lighting on the fire station out here, so as you're walking out and you look at the driveway is very well lit. But you look above it and it's just cut off at the roof, it's black.
Yeah, that's great.
So, those types of things have been moving. The lighting we did I reviewed for Jawa. We changed some of the lighting that the consultant was going to use, so that would also be dark sky compliant. It was a matter of looking at the bollards, and there's a bug rating on how much glare and how much it shoots up, and we chose the lower one to get that light down, so.
I like what Michael's saying, though. I think you could say, our goal and all that we're doing is to make Bluff as healthy as possible for our residents and for the wild,
I mean, we could take it even further and say, be a leader for North Shore and Lake County.
Yeah.
Lead the way in terms of sustainability initiatives and stuff like that, you know?
And there's energy too. I mean, that's
Sure,
mentioned in
there's
some
some-
of
I
the other
mean-
towns,
Yeah.
which is
Give me a
important.
pen, I'll start writing it, not like I'm a writer for work, so I'm happy to start drafting that language if we need to.
Yeah, so there's the,
Bring in a couple options next time.
being a
if you know.
leader is great, and, reduced energy consumption, and how great, I mean, how many times have you gone out with your kids and you want to look at a constellation, or you want to try to see a comet or something, you're like, I can't see anything
Well, yeah,
up
that's
there.
where Waukegan and Chicago starts coming in, just the pure amount of lights that are coming in. We're never gonna be able to see like the northern lights. I won't say never, but like the northern lights is probably the
But
likelihood
as
of
you
that actually
said, like if
happening.
we're a leader, we can get others following
Right.
our example. I mean, you do go to remote places and you see the
The Milky
incredible
Way.
night sky, and you're like, we could have that. Like, we could if we were responsible all across the region. Like, we are deprived. We've deprived ourselves of this richness.
Well, especially we're so blessed we have the lake here, and I mean, we all under a full moon rising, people drive from all over to stop at Sunset Park and look at the moon coming up. And I almost think that, we could even zone some of our village differently. I mean, the commercial section versus residential, and as we get to the lake, I think we've got to be even more concerned, because that's our nature space that is so special for us here. And, if you go out to the lake and you're getting dust, light, pollution, it just ruins it.
Discouraging.
And I know we say uplighting is good, but I'll tell you, downlighting that people are putting up in trees, you gotta look through that to see the sky. So even though it's down, it's so high, literally 30, 40 feet up, that they're flooding their yard down, that it does pollute your
Yeah.
path to
Yeah.
view.
Reflection and refraction, right? No light is better than any
Yeah,
light at all,
yeah.
but.
Yeah, but
people like their lights,
it's,
people need to
you're
see.
looking through a dust before you get to that, top of that light canopy.
oh, another example, just as you're going out tonight, if you look at the string lights outside in Avasi, you'll notice that they have hats on them.
Yeah.
I remember that. We talked about that.
Party guys?
Yeah, a little flying saucer.
Kind of.
Good talk.
Yeah, when I was in my working life, we used to have, we had a saying of do right to left planning. We're so geared and we write left to right. We do our to-do lists left to right. But I would say, let's go right to left. Let's set our objective here. Where do we want to go?
Plan backwards, right.
And then we then go backwards and say, okay, this will be iterative, but we know where we want to get to. We need to have a mission statement, goals that says, where do we want to get to? And then we lay that plan out.
So our goal is to see the northern lights.
My goal is just to get the elementary school to turn off like a couple of the 73 exterior lights that they have. I live right next door, and it's,
Yeah.
even though it's a LEED building, they just have a million lights on.
Well, controls is part of that, right? Mm-hmm. So, so we don't have to work this all out tonight and, stay up 2 more hours and get to this, but let's just kind of bullet point, and then we can start to massage it. I heard leader. I heard energy. We have. Wildlife,
Reduced carbon footprint.
reduce carbon footprint. We have the uplight and the light pollution to adjoining properties, neighbors, good neighbor.
Good neighbor, right?
We talked about the wildlife and color. What else?
But
am
we
I
also
missing?
have the lake. I mean, that's a beautiful resource that we can have as an anchor. Like, we've got this beautiful natural dark space already.
We also got some amazing restoration of landscape that's going to have bees and butterflies and animals, and you're going to see that increase. So that kind of goes with that those areas should be dark.
Absolutely.
Right, well, and, light's dangerous for a lot of things that migrate. things migrate at night.
And do we agree it should apply comprehensively to the village?
Yes, yes, because it's a
Our
belief.
community.
Okay. Anything else that should go on the bullet point for them?
I think something we need to call out is the fact that lights are used for safety and.
Right, security.
But, yeah, safety and security, so we need to find that balance of usage versus,
Absolutely,
you know, usage that makes sense and, again,
right.
promotes
You know what, too,
safety
there's
and
another
security.
psychological thing, which is my front porch light is on. It's welcoming, it's, we're home, we're friendly. You know, something's happening on Arbor, and I don't know why, but a lot of people, we've always had a dark house at night, nothing on, but it's starting to happen at other homes. And even, you know, we all grew up with, you gotta have some light on, you know, so the burglars don't come. But what's happening is that people have motion lights on, and it actually is even more secure than having some lights on, because I think burglars know, ooh, they must have motion lights on over there. So it's just starting to happen, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah, I think that definitely is something I think we concluded in the draft of the Lake Bluff outline, and as mentioned in a couple of these other ordinances. We don't want to impact security, but there are ways to do it. You know, there was, particularly with control, like you said, controls. You know, we recognize there's an automobile dealership here, but there are ways to renovate lights, minimize the lights, use controls. One of the things when this first started that I was just shocked at was at the University of Illinois, where they actually put the motion sensors on this large parking lot for the students. And so there was a low level on. It was a little hard to see, but it was not as bright as what they used to be. But they actually put sensors on there. And one of the things they told me was when it was a little bit brighter but still kind of dark in the parking lot, I didn't know if someone was hiding. But if they start to move, I can see the lights coming towards me, click, click, click,
Exactly.
and you're like, who's coming towards me? So
Yes.
there is that like active security feature now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think the other thing we need to recognize is, as you mentioned earlier, holidays, you know, specifically Christmas and celebrations, graduation parties and stuff. But Marietta, what you said about your neighborhood, but towards it's like party every night houses. They bought the lights and they're on the front deck or when they're in the yard, and they're just lit up all the time.
Well, you know,
strung
it's-
across the yards.
And I have to say, I'm happy it's happening. I don't know why, because it's not like we have neighborhood meetings, but a lot of us now put our lights on timers.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So they start at, 5 and they're off by 11,
yeah.
because everybody's sleeping and nobody's gonna see them anyway.
But, you know, party lights, graduation party, great, do it, but,
International Margarita Day.
yeah. fine.
There's always a holiday.
Invite us. and-
Early.
Invite me, yeah.
I mean, I think when it comes to that sort of specialized party lights, we can give recommendations in terms of what we
Right.
hope to see, in terms of we
Yeah, of course.
recommend, you know.
Of course, the timers are good, that, we can get into all that, the details on that. We certainly don't want to curtail celebrations, we just want to make it reasonable, good neighbor policy.
Good neighbor policies,
Look
yeah.
at the
like-
Flagstaff one, B has some decent language about, safety and utility and that's valued and important.
Yeah, I thought the Flagstaff was a great example because they take such pride
Yeah,
that their sky, kind of like we have our Lake Michigan, they have this sky that they're very proud of, the atmosphere there, and, they've identified something very specific to be proud of.
Yeah.
And that gives everybody an emotional, a sense of being a leader or being proud, or this is what makes us special.
Sure.
Well, they get a lot of tourism for our night sky.
Yes, they
yeah,
do.
people journey there, yeah.
Do we also include public utility, Silco?
Our ability as a village or city to regulate the utility company lighting is limited.
Non-existent.
However,
Same with like, right,
know,
Metro, the railroads,
yeah,
right?
I
You
mean-
probably can't do much
Yeah.
around any of
some of
those.
the lights that ComEd have installed over the last couple of years are better than the ones they used to have. I don't know if you want to add anything, Drew. We really can't, there's not a ton we can do to force ComEd to, over 5 years, to rip out lights and put different things in.
ComEd will do what you pay them to do, right? Generally speaking, the village had adjusted or went from, we modified most of the street lamps to LED, and they're those flat pans, you know, that have their full control. Which we've actually talked about when they were installing that. You know, I think we were in the tier before in terms of technology that could we in fact have dimmers on those? Can we have them on timers? Could they be like you described, you know, come on like that, in that University of Illinois parking lot? We've talked about, I think we were too soon for that. But generally speaking, it is a hodgepodge of ownership, rental, and so it is the village, like we own our street lamps in the industrial park, but we rent most of them, and so we don't necessarily own all of them anyway, so. And there's been subdivisions, HOAs that have come to us trying to get help, like, you know, some of them aren't even plumb, you know, they're like this, or, they're, you know, maybe it's, some of them are sodium, you know, still, or, you know, like, we don't want that, and so trying to work through those issues, so it's very difficult because it's a hodgepodge.
I think once we get a universal standard, as we look at those as they come up, there may be ways to just implement it as we can.
I would love to try and do dark sky nights. So like tonight is a new moon, right? The best chance to see stars is during a new moon. Could we have like a, hey, everybody, it's a new moon, turn off all your lights. Let's see how much we could, everybody turn off all your, could we get the village and the park district and everybody else? Turn off all your lights. Let's see how dark we can actually get it.
But this, ultimately, procedurally, this will be a zoning code, you know, that's where this will rest, these regulations. So the idea to call attention to it in that manner, to bring people around the issue and try to encourage people to participate, I think that's a fantastic concept to say, hey, we're having conversations about these codes, turn off your lights. Let's talk, you know, let's
Everybody turn off your lights for every new moon for, you know, the remainder of the summer.
Thursday night blackout.
Right,
Didn't-
exactly.
You know,
Didn't we
somebody-
didn't we
yeah.
try
Once a
and do
month.
something voluntarily with no mow?
No more May.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we're gonna do that, make
No
noise
mow
around
lights
that.
on Sundays.
How'd that go?
Mo lights.
Not so hot.
I still have my
know,
signs.
you know.
I have my signs ready to go.
Also organize people.
I
get
was gonna
together in the
contact
village.
Eric
And go
Eric
out.
and April and have them write a
Angry.
thing in the newsletter about it.
Yeah, it's worth pursuing. As part of,
Jake was really excited. He was a big supporter of it.
Because he didn't want to mow.
No, I mean,
Like, here's the
we
thing
could
with
do
no
it.
mo-
I think the village, I think residents had more problems with it at the end. I mean, we can do it with relative ease.
I think no mow makes a lot of sense for urban areas. I think the village of Lake Bluff has a ton of flowering trees and gardens and bulbs and all kinds of stuff where the pollinators don't maybe need the assistance that no mow would bring them. While I think it's a wonderful concept, I think,
The pollinators don't use the bulbs and stuff, those are not native plants.
but
They're
what
not
about the
used-
flowering trees and whatnot? Like the
So much depends if they're. native
cherries and
well, not to get off topic,
I
but I
mean,
think
I could
there's a-
talk to you forever about
I
no
think
more.
there's-
That's
I
just
think there's a
another
way,
meeting.
it was a good idea, and I think we ought to explore that in the education part of this as we go forward. But I do want to keep this, because there's going to be a lot of detailed discussions on this, keep this to, I think we've gotten kind of an overarching list of goals. Did you volunteer to write something up for the next
Sure.
meeting? Okay.
if someone can send me a list of bullet points, I'd be happy to make a couple of drafts to.
So, just back on the ComEd part, sorry. If we don't own them, we don't control them, but how did they determine that we needed so many streetlights, especially close to the lake? I mean,
Well-
what is it? Is it IDOT? Is it a village? Is it?
So there is no, the village does not have a standard or specification for how many streetlights, but I will tell you, the historic development pattern is at intersections.
Yes,
Is
that's
where
what
you
it
see them.
seems
And
like.
it's mostly, the story I've heard goes back to just the idea of providing service, specifically thinking about plowing snow. You have that visual guidepost. I know that's an intersection, you know, when you're driving and that's one thing. Generally, I say Lake Bluff is rather light in terms of street lamps. There's really not a lot.
I agree with that one.
Yeah, I mean, you look around other communities, there's not a lot.
No,
But,
again, as we get closer to the lake, it seems like we have more closer to the lake than we do west in the village.
Could a villager potentially petition to have a streetlight removed?
we have done that if we talk to the public safety officials, and I think we're net zero since I think we removed a light and we added a light.
Well, we can look at that. I don't know, to get
Yeah,
to
I think
tonight.
because the controls have gotten more sophisticated, we might want to think also too, do we want to remove that or do we want to convert it to something that we can control and is more interactive?
Dim, yeah,
Right, dim at a certain
movement
time,
or something.
come on if traffic's approaching, or even get to a point where they can be turned on at a certain level by village, public works. There's a huge storm, there's a this coming on, so the controls are getting better and better.
Yeah, okay.
But to your point about the quantity of lights by the lake, there's no, if there's a specific light you're thinking about, let us know. We can say, because maybe just didn't get on the radar. Like, I don't know, what's the purpose of that? What function is it serving? Is it?
There's one on, there's one on Mountain that just throws so much light down on Lily and Dell's Ravine, and it's not an intersection. It's
But
on
is that the turn?
a turn,
That's probably why.
but it just seems, and all the neighbors are like, this thing it seems like it's much brighter than the others too. That's why I was wondering if those are adjustable or not.
My guess is the way Mountain is, that functions as an intersection, right? Because it's, is there another way to accomplish that? Maybe.
Yeah.
Is there a way, like, could you put in, like, I don't know, a guardrail with reflectors on a guardrail, right?
Possibly or something, yeah. Anyway, okay, we can look at those things.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other comments on this? Well, this is exciting, I'm looking forward to this. Next up is the village staff report. Anything to bring up?
The village board did approve the ban, the seasonal ban. I think everybody saw that. That's out there. So that's done, and we're gonna start the information flow out the door with that and doing the hang tags.
Not on the website.
Yeah, and then the village has also approved on first reading the stormwater utility fee, which I think they're gonna take back up at the first meeting in April. And again, that's establishing a dedicated revenue stream to pay for stormwater infrastructure. And this is Eric's last meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So I will not be joining you on this
Journey of lighting.
I'm here for this. So my last day will be April 5th. We are not forgetting about you, though. We're not just gonna leave you behind.
Well, thank you. There you go.
Why don't you tell them what you're up to?
Yeah, what's going on?
I got a job down in the city for an engineering construction firm. I'm going to be doing bicycle and pedestrian planning.
No, nice.
Oh,
Very
wow.
cool.
That's awesome.
Related to SEC in a way.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Fitting for this
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah, that's our next
I know this
item.
is impossible for everybody to believe. Eric has no desire to get into city management. You believe that?
No way.
I know.
Name of the firm?
Wonder why?
My old firm. Tell them I said hello.
How about that?
What do you know? Small
Well,
world.
congratulations to you.
And we have hired a new assistant to the village administrator. Clara Gable will start on March 27th. She is a planner.
Isn't she starting the 31st, the Friday?
What did I say?
27th, next Monday?
31st. 27th is the meeting that will not happen, but so 31st, sorry, thank you, Eric's right. The 31st, she has been a planner in Gurnee since 2016. She has her master's in public administration with a certificate of planning, but she's also AICP, so she's a certified planner through the American Institute.
American Institute of Certified Planners.
There we go. So she's has that credential, which is fantastic. And she, before that, worked in the private sector, on solar, the solar side. And she, in her undergrad, she has 3 degrees: geography, sustainability, and political science.
Wow, nice.
Oh, wow, what a good fit.
Good-
Yeah,
what a good
right?
Combination.
And unlike Eric, she's interested in administration and management of cities. But she's, yeah, we're looking forward to her. I especially am looking forward to her start. Yes, we're excited. We had a great process. For those of you who don't know, we run assessment centers for department heads and other high-level positions, and they're not fun, but we had a lot of great professionals here to help us out, former village managers and community development directors, and it's an active city manager, so it's a good system. It works. So,
Been on
Nice.
it.
I'm sorry?
I've been on those.
You've sat on
finally.
those, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I helped hire a certain village manager.
Oh, that's true. Yes, me. So, yeah. So anyway, so we're excited.
Jude, has there been any feedback on the ordinance on the leaf blowers that you gotten from the newsletters or anything yet? Anybody reactions?
I would say there has been, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 comments where that they thought that the village maybe moved too fast in terms of, not having enough time for kind of the mom and pop shops to adjust to it. And maybe the village went too far with that, but that has been it. So I mean, I think the big scheme of the thing, I certainly, you're not going to please everybody all the time, right?
That's right.
So,
Any change, there's
Any
always,
change,
yeah.
right.
so it's to be expected, right?
Right, thank you. Members report, anyone want to bring up?
Was that the Lake Bluff Open Lands Buckthorn burn on, what was it, last Sunday, at the Skokie Reserve?
great.
Big success. I do some volunteering with them and cutting out all that buckthorn, and it was 7 hours of burning
Wow.
buckthorn cuts.
Very
So,
satisfying, huh?
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of good work. And it looks great over there. And the Skokie Preserve looks unbelievable.
Well, thanks for supporting that.
Yeah.
All right, chair's report, I've got nothing. Can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
good meeting.
Well, good.